I've broken down these details in such a way that they'll leave you shocked, and trust me, you'll only understand the full theory if you stay with me until the very end. Because what if I told you that the Marvel Cinematic Universe's biggest pivot, the shift from Avengers the Kang Dynasty to Avengers Doomsday, wasn't just a change in direction, but a signal that Marvel had an entirely different endgame planned all along? What if the multiverse we thought we understood wasn't just collapsing, it was being rewritten by something far older, far more dangerous, and far more intelligent than Kang ever was? Welcome back to MovieCast, hosted by me, Liam Harrison, your guide through the hidden corridors of the MCU, where the stories behind the stories reveal the truths we were never meant to see. Today, I'm taking you deep into the untold story of the Kang Dynasty, not the film we're getting, but the one Marvel was originally building. A movie that would have reshaped everything we know about time, reality, and the multiverse itself. I'll walk you through what this lost version looked like, who would have appeared in it, and how its DNA still lingers inside Avengers Doomsday. But I'll also explore the bigger question, why did Marvel change course? And how does Doctor Doom, the MCU's most enigmatic figure yet, fit into this incredible evolution? Before Avengers Doomsday was even a whisper, the Kang Dynasty was supposed to be the movie. It was the linchpin of the multiverse saga, the Infinity War of this era. From the moment Loki's finale introduced He Who Remains, fans knew Marvel was planting seeds for something colossal. Kang wasn't just another villain. He was an idea, a living embodiment of time itself, fractured across infinite possibilities. And yet, as I began piecing together insider reports, early leaks, and direct statements from Alex Perez at the Cosmic Circus, something clicked. Marvel didn't abandon Kang because they lost faith in him as a character. They shifted gears because the Kang Dynasty was never meant to end, it was designed to loop. That's the first big revelation I want to unpack. According to Perez, the Kang Dynasty was originally envisioned as a sprawling, multiversal epic split across multiple perspectives. It wouldn't have been just one movie about heroes versus a single villain. It was going to be 3 separate wars, happening simultaneously across divergent timelines, each war against a different variant of Kang, representing a different part of his fractured psyche. The first Kang, known as Ramatut, would have emerged from the ancient past, an Egyptian pharaoh who used future technology to crown himself as a god. His domain wasn't just time, it was worship, manipulation, and illusion. Facing him would be the grounded heroes, the street-level Avengers, people like Sam Wilson's Captain America, Shang-Chi, and Yelena Belova's Black Widow. Their battle wasn't just about saving the world. It was about preserving history itself. Then came Mortis Centurion, the militaristic variant. Imagine a Kang built like a living weapon, leading an army of time-forged soldiers across the broken realities. His stage would have been a war-torn 31st century Earth, a planet overtaken by future tech and ruled by fear. The Avengers facing him. The tech-based and strategic minds, Rhodey, Ironheart, even Doctor Strange, in a tactical role. Each battle would test a different aspect of heroism, courage, intellect, sacrifice. And finally the third, Kang the Conqueror, the one exiled to the quantum realm in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. In the script, this Kang wasn't dead. He was evolving, trapped beyond time. He had seen the truth of the multiverse, that no matter how many timelines there were, every Kang was destined to destroy themselves. And so in his madness, he decided to purge them all. This version of the film was built like a chessboard. 3 Kangs, 3 wars, 1 inevitable collision. Each set of Avengers was meant to fight their way through different realities, only to realize that their battles were orchestrated not by Kang, but by the TVA itself. Remember the TVA? The Time Variance Authority introduced in Loki? In the Kang Dynasty, it wasn't just background lore. It was the battlefield. I found this part fascinating because it completely reframes how we see the TVA. In Loki, they were bureaucratic gatekeepers, trimming timelines like gardeners. But in the Kang Dynasty, they would have been revealed as Kang's personal army, a system built to protect his control over the multiverse. The twist? Every TVA agent was a variant of someone significant. The sacred timeline wasn't sacred at all. It was selectively curated to remove anyone who might challenge Kang's rule. And that's where Dr. Doom first entered the picture. Not as a conqueror, not yet as Latveria's ruler, but as one of those removed beings. Perez's early notes describe a subtle cameo, a shadowed figure in a hood, seen only briefly in a TVA databank file, labeled as Erased Threat Victor Von D. That's right, in this original version, Kang knew about Doom. He saw him as the only being capable of unraveling his empire. So he pruned him out of existence. When I first read that, it hit me like lightning, because that changes everything. If Kang pruned Doom, then the TVA wasn't just protecting the timeline, they were suppressing evolution. They were the keepers of stagnation, ensuring that no being could ever ascend beyond Kang's control. And that raises a chilling question. What happens when something breaks through the pruning system? You see, the deleted multiverses weren't destroyed. They were sent somewhere, the void. In Loki, the void looked like a graveyard of realities, devoured by Alioth. But in the Kang Dynasty, the void would have evolved into something much more sinister. It was going to become Battleworld. That's the bridge. The original Kang Dynasty would have ended not with the Avengers defeating Kang, but with them being erased, sent to the void. But here's the kicker. The void isn't empty. It's a patchwork planet of dead realities, stitched together, fragments of timelines, collapsed dimensions, lost cities. It's where forgotten heroes, villains, and civilizations coexist in chaos. Imagine the final minutes of the Kang Dynasty cutting to Tony Stark from a dead timeline, or a variant of Natasha Romanoff who survived Vormir. Picture Steve Rogers walking through a wasteland of collapsed Earths, realizing he's no longer in his universe. That was the setup, the end of the beginning. But the biggest twist, Kang wasn't the master of the void. Someone else was. Someone who had been waiting. And this is where Marvel's internal shift begins to make sense. Because when you start tying the threads together, Kang pruning Doom, the void being his dumping ground, and Doom eventually rising from that very place, you start to see the pattern. Avengers. Doomsday isn't a replacement for the Kang Dynasty. It's the continuation of it. Before I go deeper, let's pull back for a moment and talk about the meta context, the real world side of this. When Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania hit theaters, it was meant to ignite the Kang storyline to turn him into the new Thanos. Jonathan Majors' performance was intense, layered, and genuinely intimidating. But the film itself underperformed. Critics were mixed. The box office was lukewarm, and audiences didn't quite connect with Kang the way they had with Thanos. Then came Majors' legal troubles, which complicated everything. But here's what's fascinating. Marvel didn't panic. They pivoted. Instead of scrapping the multiverse saga, they absorbed its weaknesses and turned them into narrative fuel. The Kang variants, gone. The fractured timeline, reborn. The mysterious threat Kang feared. That's Doom. That's when I realized something deeper. The Kang Dynasty was always a setup for Doom's story. Even before the controversy, even before the rewrites, Doom was in the shadows from the start. Marvel just decided to bring him forward sooner. And honestly, it makes sense. Doom isn't just a villain. He's a philosopher, a scientist, and a monarch. The perfect foil for both Tony Stark's legacy and Kang's ideology. Kang believes in dominance through time. Doom believes in perfection through control. One seeks to erase chaos, the other seeks to reshape it. In the original Kang Dynasty outline, Doom's eventual rise was meant to happen in secret wars. The Beyonder, the godlike being from another dimension, was supposed to merge with a Kang variant, creating a Kang Beyonder hybrid. But the more Marvel developed that idea, the more they realized something incredible. Doom himself could become the Beyonder. That's not just speculation. Perez hinted that early drafts explored this possibility, Doom absorbing the Beyonder's essence after Kang's defeat, effectively transcending the boundaries of reality. It would have made him the final villain of not just one saga, but two. So when I think about Avengers Doomsday, I don't see it as Marvel cutting corners. I see it as the MCU pulling off its most ambitious retcon yet, turning what could have been a crisis into the perfect evolution of its own mythology. But back to the Kang Dynasty, because there's one part of this lost story that haunts me more than anything else. The emotional center of the film wasn't supposed to be Kang. It was supposed to be Loki. Yes, Loki. The trickster god who spent 2 seasons manipulating, redeeming, and ultimately anchoring the multiverse. Pears reported that the Kang Dynasty would have included a major TVA subplot, one where Loki discovers that his actions in Loki Season 2 didn't actually save the multiverse, but froze it in place. He didn't liberate time. He just built a cage strong enough to hold Kang. And when that cage breaks, when the sacred timeline begins to collapse, the Avengers are forced to fight wars they don't understand, across worlds they can't control. That's why this movie would have been so important. It wasn't just action, it was existential. It asked, what does it mean to fight for a future when every version of that future is doomed to repeat? And that's where the seeds of Doomsday are buried. Because when you strip away the cosmic spectacle, the core question remains, who decides what the true timeline is? Kang thought it was him. The TVA enforced it. But what if the multiverse was never supposed to be ruled at all? What if the act of pruning, of control itself, created Doom? That's the narrative brilliance here. Doom isn't a new villain. He's a reaction. The universe's immune response to tyranny. And as I continue breaking this theory down layer by layer, you'll see how Marvel's pivot to Doomsday doesn't erase the Kang Dynasty. It fulfills it. Because in a world where Kang was God, Doom was inevitable. When I started pulling deeper into the structure of the Kang Dynasty, something struck me right away. It wasn't meant to be a typical Avengers Assemble story. It was designed to be an unraveling. A film where the heroes don't come together because of hope or leadership. They come together because the fabric of their universe is literally falling apart. Imagine this. The movie opens not with an alien invasion or a villain's monologue, but with the breakdown of time itself. Cities caught in repeating loops, moments glitching like broken film reels, people aging and reversing in seconds. The Avengers, scattered after Endgame, begin noticing anomalies they can't explain. Wong senses distortions in the dark dimension. Sam Wilson's Captain America witnesses history rewriting itself mid-flight. And in the quantum realm, Janet Van Dyne feels a pulse, a rhythm she hasn't felt since she met Kang. That's when they realize the sacred timeline is no longer singular. It's splitting, not into branches but into copies. Echo timelines, each reflecting the other, like mirrors slowly falling out of sync. I've always loved that idea because it's not just visual chaos, it's psychological. It tells us the multiverse isn't infinite, it's unstable. Kang's control is faltering, and as his empire fractures, every version of reality begins fighting for dominance. That's where the 3 Kang variants begin their conquest. We've already talked about Ramatut, the ancient pharaoh, but let's go deeper. His kingdom in this version of the film isn't historical Egypt. It's a reconstructed reality, a hybrid of myth and future tech. Think pyramids floating above deserts, powered by time crystals instead of sunlight. In this warped world, the Avengers team that confronts him has to navigate not only a battle against his forces, but against time's very logic. Every hour they spend fighting him, days pass elsewhere. The battle here isn't just physical. Ramatut sees himself as a god, the origin of all timelines. He tells Captain America something chilling. Every choice you've ever made, every triumph you've ever had came from me. You are not a hero. You are my creation. That line, according to Perez's early report, would have been the first true revelation that Kang didn't just conquer timelines, he engineered them. Meanwhile, the second war unfolds in the future, Mortis Centurion's domain. This Kang is pure logic. He commands legions of synthetics, half organic, half temporal constructs. His world is metallic, cold, and ruled by mathematical precision. To defeat him, the Avengers would have to think like him. This was where Doctor Strange, Ironheart, and Bruce Banner's intelligence would collide with a being who has already calculated every outcome they could attempt. And yet, in all this chaos, the Third War, the Conqueror's return, becomes the emotional through line. Remember, King the Conqueror from Quantumania wasn't just angry or ambitious. He was betrayed by his own kind. That betrayal was supposed to be the engine of this film. The Conqueror returns fueled by rage and by knowledge of something the others refuse to face, that no king can win. The multiverse itself rejects them. That's when the story begins to pivot toward a much deeper layer, the revelation of the King paradox. See, every King variant, no matter how powerful, eventually reaches the same point, total dominance. And once they achieve it, the multiverse collapses. The loop resets. A new king emerges, history reforms, and the cycle starts again. That's why He Who Remains built the TVA, to keep this loop contained. He wasn't saving time. He was preventing the Kangs from destroying each other endlessly. But now, the loop is broken. The TVA is crumbling. Timelines are multiplying, and the Kang Dynasty has fractured into civil war. I think that's one of the most profound ideas Marvel ever played with, that the ultimate villain of time isn't just fighting heroes. He's fighting himself. Now, let's talk about the Avengers' role in this. Because the movie wasn't meant to show them winning through brute force. It was about awakening. In the second act, the Avengers realize that defeating the Kangs is impossible through combat. Every time one dies, another rises. Instead, they turn to something unexpected. Memory. Wanda Maximoff's chaos magic, which can connect to alternate selves, becomes a key. Loki, operating from within the TVA, discovers that every Kang variant shares one singular origin point, a decision in the 31st century made by a scientist named Nathaniel Richards. That's where Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, was meant to enter the picture. Not as a superhero yet, but as a name whispered in files, a shadow of the future. Kang is his descendant, and his genius is the multiverse's original sin. I remember reading Perez's breakdown and pausing at this part. Because if that's true, then Reed and Doom's connection becomes cosmic destiny. Reed's intellect creates the spark that births Kang. Doom's obsession with control becomes the counterbalance that eventually restores order. Two sides of the same coin. Now, as the Avengers begin to trace Kang's origins, the TVA intervenes. That's when Loki's storyline becomes essential again. Imagine Loki, standing in the citadel of the TVA, surrounded by collapsing timelines, trying to reason with a dying Miss Minutes. She tells him the truth, that every TVA agent was once a hero who failed to save their world. Kang recruited them to guard his timeline, promising salvation. But the moment they accepted, they became slaves to the loop. That revelation hits Loki hard. He realizes he isn't free either. His own redemption arc, his sacrifice, his new purpose, all of it could have been part of Kang's plan. And that's when the script takes its boldest turn. Loki chooses to break the TVA. He decides to open every door, unleash every timeline, even if it means chaos. Because as he puts it, free will means nothing if it's curated. That's the moment everything collapses. The TVA explodes in a storm of timelines, ripping holes across existence. The Avengers are scattered across realities, each witnessing fragments of worlds colliding, New Yorks overlapping, universes folding in on themselves, heroes meeting alternate versions of their own deaths. And then, silence. A pulse echoes through the void. A hum like machinery and magic combined. Out of the remnants of the collapsing multiverse, a new power rises. At first, the heroes believe it's another Kang. But it's not. It's the echo of doom. This is where the script gets hauntingly poetic. A figure walks through the ruins of timelines wearing tattered armor, a hood half torn, a mask forged from the melted remains of TVA tech. He's not the Doom we know yet, not regal, not composed. He's a survivor. He's what's left when the universe rejects its own gods. In the original plan, this would have been a post-credits reveal. Just a glimpse, his gauntlets sparking as he looks up at the fractured sky and says, "They feared me even here." That's the moment everything changes. Because for the first time, the Avengers realize Kang wasn't the end. He was the warning. From there, the Kang Dynasty would have spiraled toward its tragic ending. The heroes regroup in fragments, one team trapped in the void, another inside a collapsing branch, Loki suspended between timelines, trying to hold them together. Kang the Conqueror, now the last surviving variant, faces the Avengers one final time. But as he fights, his reality starts disintegrating. This is where the emotional storytelling takes over. Kang isn't defeated by power. He's undone by truth. The truth that his empire, his dynasty, his control, all of it was meaningless because it could never last. He watches the other Kangs dissolve into paradoxes, his own timeline eroding. As he fades, he leaves behind a warning. The multiverse will not stay unruled. Something must replace me. And that's when the ground beneath them starts to shift. Fragments of dead worlds begin fusing together. Mountains from one Earth collide with cities from another. Oceans spill into deserts. The void begins building itself. This, according to Perez, was Marvel's plan for the bridge into Secret Wars. The end of the Kang Dynasty would literally construct Battleworld. Every hero, every survivor from collapsed timelines would awaken there. A patchwork planet floating in the cosmic dark. No stars, no time, just fragments. And at the center of it all, a citadel made of obsidian and steel. Doom's fortress. Even though Doom wasn't meant to be the main villain yet, his presence was the symbol. The idea that the universe abhors a vacuum. Remove one conqueror and another will rise. I find that beautiful in a tragic way. Kang, who spent eternity trying to maintain order, ends up creating the chaos that births his successor. Doom, the man Kang pruned to prevent his rise, emerges as the inevitable answer. Now think about what that means for Avengers Doomsday. If the Void became Battleworld, if the TVA was destroyed, and if Doom emerged from the wreckage, then Doomsday isn't just a new movie. It's the multiverse reconsolidating under a single ruler. A man who doesn't just want control, he wants perfection. Perez hinted that the opening of Doomsday might even mirror the end of the Kang Dynasty, with the camera pulling through the ruins of dead universes until it finds Doom standing at the edge of the void, gazing at the remnants of reality, whispering, "It's time to begin again." It's poetic symmetry. But before I move on to what Doomsday truly means, there's one more detail from the Kang Dynasty that deserves attention: the emotional farewell. At the climax, when the Avengers realize they can't escape the collapse, Loki uses his powers to anchor them, weaving their timelines into a single strand, binding their souls to a point beyond space. It's a sacrifice that traps him within the collapsing multiverse. The last shot before the credits? Loki, sitting alone in the ruins of the TVA, surrounded by floating fragments of timelines, whispering, For once, I am where I belong. And then cut to black. It's poetic, tragic, and cyclical, the perfect mirror to the Infinity Saga's ending. That's the beauty of this lost version. It didn't aim for closure. It aimed for continuity, the kind that loops back on itself, like time. And that's what fascinates me most, how Marvel's current Avengers Doomsday isn't replacing this concept. It's evolving it. If Doom truly emerges as the master of the void, then everything we've seen before, the TVA, King's War, even Loki's ascension, becomes the foundation for a new type of rule, not a dynasty. A dominion, a reign built not on pruning, but on perfection. And yet, if Kang's empire collapsed because it couldn't handle infinite choice, then Doom's empire may fall because it can't handle absolute control. That's the philosophical tension that's about to define the next chapter of the MCU. And in the next part of this breakdown, I'm going to dive into exactly that. How Avengers Doomsday is transforming the unfinished DNA of the Kang Dynasty into something bolder, darker, and more self-aware. We'll explore how the TVA's ruins become the stage for a multiversal war unlike anything we've seen before, and why Loki, Doom, and the Avengers are all reflections of the same cosmic idea that every universe eventually becomes the cage it was trying to escape. Because if the Kang Dynasty was about the end of control, Doomsday is about the illusion of freedom. And trust me, once you see how these two stories connect, you'll realize Marvel didn't change direction. It completed a circle it started years ago. After the collapse of the Kang Dynasty's multiverse, there's silence. But not the kind of silence that comes with peace. It's the silence that follows disaster. That strange stillness after the end of everything, where you can still feel the echo of what used to exist. That's where the story of Avengers Doomsday begins. And in my opinion, it's the most chilling reset the MCU has ever attempted. See, most fans think of the multiverse as infinite, right? Countless realities branching endlessly. But after the events of the Kang Dynasty, that's not the case anymore. What remains isn't infinity, it's fragments. Shattered worlds stitched together into something unnatural. The void isn't dead space anymore. It's alive, sentient even, reshaping itself in the image of whoever controls it. And right now that someone is Victor Von Doom. I want to take you back to that final moment from the Kang Dynasty, the brief glimpse of the hooded figure in the ruins of time. That wasn't just a teaser, it was symbolic. Because Doom didn't emerge as a conqueror. He emerged as a witness, a survivor of the collapse who understood the one truth that even Kang never did. You can't control time, but you can own what's left of it. What fascinates me most about Doom's rise is how it redefines the concept of divinity within the MCU. Kang saw himself as a god because he could dictate timelines. Doom, however, sees godhood differently. For him, it's not about domination, it's about reconstruction. He believes the multiverse doesn't need to be infinite, it needs to be perfect. And perfection, in Doom's mind, requires design. Imagine him walking through the wasteland of Battleworld, a world composed of 1,000 dead Earths fused together, each one bearing scars of destruction. The sky glows with the remnants of broken time streams, like veins of light bleeding into the void. And in the midst of it all, Doom begins to build. Para's insider notes describe this period as the Age of Reconstruction. Doom scavenges technology from fallen timelines, Stark's armor from Earth 838, fragments of the TVA's control core, even alien relics from the Kree and Skrull empires. He fuses them with sorcery, creating something that defies logic, a citadel that can anchor realities. This citadel becomes his throne world, his Latveria beyond time. And it's not just a fortress, it's alive. The walls whisper with quantum energy, the air hums with temporal power. Everything Doom builds obeys his will. But what's most haunting about this is that Doom doesn't rebuild for conquest. he rebuilds for control through order. His ideology is chillingly rational. If chaos is the nature of creation, then tyranny is the price of stability. Now, here's where the connection to the Kang Dynasty deepens. Remember Kang's warning before he vanished? Something must replace me? That wasn't just prophecy. It was a contingency. Kang knew that when he fell, someone or something would rise to fill the vacuum. He just didn't realize that Doom would use his own discarded system to do it. Because hidden deep within the TVA's ruins is the core of Kang's empire, the Chrono Engine. It's the machine that powered the sacred timeline, the same one that allowed Kang to maintain order across infinite realities. Doom finds it, and instead of dismantling it, he modifies it. He fuses it with his own magic, bending time to his personal will. In essence, he turns Kang's greatest invention into his own heart, literally. Perez describes Doom forging the Chrono Engine into a new power source, the heart of Battleworld. It beats in rhythm with Doom's pulse, syncing reality to his very existence. That's when the MCU pivots from science fiction to metaphysics. Because if Kang ruled through fear and technology, Doom rules through conviction. His belief becomes reality. The stronger his faith in his own vision, the more the world around him obeys it. This is where Avengers Doomsday takes on a tone we haven't seen since Infinity War. It's not a war between heroes and villains, it's a war between philosophies. Doom doesn't think he's evil. He genuinely believes he's saving what's left of existence. And the scariest part? He might be right. While Doom reshapes the void into Battleworld, fragments of the old MCU begin to resurface. Survivors who were erased by Kang's pruning process start reappearing, variants, forgotten heroes, broken versions of universes that once thrived. Some of them remember what Kang did, others think Doom is their savior. And here's where the story gets even more intriguing. Perez claims that one of Doom's earliest allies in this world is none other than Loki. Now that might sound insane at first, but think about it. Loki ended the Kang Dynasty trapped between timelines, isolated, watching the collapse from within the TVA's remnants. When he awakens in Battleworld, he's disoriented. Time doesn't move. Causality doesn't exist. It's an eternal limbo. Doom finds him there and offers him a choice, serve or fade. But Doom doesn't present himself as a tyrant. He tells Loki, "You and I were gods once, until time decided it no longer needed us. But I can change that. Help me rebuild, and I will give you a throne beyond chaos." For Loki, that's temptation incarnate. He's always sought meaning, purpose, identity, and here's Doom, offering him all of it. At first, Loki plays along, helping Doom stabilize fragments of timelines. Together, they rebuild pieces of the world, bringing order to what was once chaos. But the deeper Loki goes, the more he realizes Doom isn't rebuilding reality, he's rewriting it. Every new city, every new law of physics, every breath of life that emerges, it all bends to Doom's image. And that's when Loki begins to see the truth. Doom isn't creating a better world. He's creating a mirror. Every version of Earth that reappears becomes slightly altered, a reflection of Doom's ideal civilization. No war, no rebellion, no freedom, just harmony through subjugation. This, to me, is the most fascinating shift in Marvel's storytelling. Because for the first time, we're seeing a villain who doesn't just destroy the multiverse, he curates it. He becomes the editor of existence. Meanwhile, remnants of the Avengers begin to awaken across the fractured worlds. Sam Wilson, Strange, Wong, and even a variant of Spider-Man from a collapsed timeline find themselves pulled into Doom's new order. They don't recognize the world they're in. It feels familiar, yet wrong, like a dream version of reality. In one chilling sequence described by insiders, Strange walks through a city that looks like New York but realizes every billboard bears Doom's insignia. Every person speaks his name with reverence, not fear. Doom isn't ruling through terror, he's achieved something worse. He's convinced everyone that his way is the only path forward. And here's the wild part. For a while, it works. Battleworld stabilizes. The timelines stop collapsing. For the first time since Endgame, the MCU feels safe. But safety in Doom's world comes at a cost: individuality. Every universe that enters Battleworld is absorbed, its heroes rewritten, its histories overwritten. And slowly, the Avengers begin to lose their memories. This is where the middle of Doomsday would twist everything we know about identity and legacy. The idea that memories are the multiverse's currency. Whoever controls the past controls all futures. Doom uses this principle to maintain his reign. He doesn't erase people physically, he erases their stories. Entire worlds forget they ever resisted. Whole heroes forget they ever died. It's horrifying because it's subtle. It's not a snap. It's not a bomb. It's silence. The erasure of meaning. And that's when the resistance begins. According to Perez's leaks, the resistance isn't led by the Avengers. It's led by a variant of Reed Richards, but not the one we're expecting. This Reed isn't the young, hopeful genius. He's older, worn, and haunted. A survivor of countless destroyed universes. He's been searching for Doom across realities, following the whispers of what King once feared. When Reed finds Battleworld, he realizes what's happened. He sees the perfection, the stability, the stillness, and he knows exactly whose design it is. He gathers the surviving heroes and tells them the one truth Doom never accounted for. If perfection exists, it means time has stopped, and if time stops, life dies. That becomes the central conflict of Doomsday, the war between stability and evolution. Doom's perfect world versus Reed's imperfect truth. And that's where I think the philosophical core of Marvel's pivot really shines. Because the Kang Dynasty was about control through fear. King manipulating the future to avoid his own destruction. Doomsday, on the other hand, is about control through love. Doom's twisted belief that if he can remove pain, choice, and error, he can save existence itself. The tragedy is that Doom genuinely believes he's doing good. He remembers what it was like to lose his mother to Mephisto's realm, to watch his homeland fall apart under tyranny, to be humiliated by Reed in his youth. Every wound in his life fuels his mission to ensure no one ever feels weakness again. But in doing so, he becomes the very thing he despises, the god of inevitability. As the story unfolds, the cracks begin to show. Doom's world starts rejecting his order. Time fractures within Battleworld's borders. People begin remembering who they were. The echoes of the multiverse start whispering. Ghosts of Kang, broken timelines, and forgotten heroes bleeding back into reality. And that's when the multiversal storm returns. The Chrono Engine, the heart of Battleworld, begins to malfunction. Because Doom's control isn't sustainable. You can't synchronize infinite fragments forever. Reed warns him, you can't program perfection into chaos. You can only pretend. But Doom refuses to listen. His ego, his grief, his pride, all of it merges into obsession. He declares himself not ruler, not savior, but architect. And in that declaration, the stage is set for the war we're about to witness in the next act. The war for the soul of the multiverse itself. The Avengers, Loki, and Reed's resistance will rise not to destroy Doom, but to remind the universe it's allowed to be flawed. It's almost tragic. The idea that after all the wars, all the timelines, all the collapses, the final battle isn't about domination, it's about acceptance. And yet Doom's final trump card is still waiting in the wings. Because buried deep in the Chrono engine, fused with Kang's ancient code, lies a failsafe, the memory of the Beyonder. In the next act, I'm going to break down how this forgotten cosmic entity, the one even Kang tried to suppress, becomes the ultimate consequence of Doom's ambition, and how Avengers Doomsday might end not with destruction, but with rebirth. Because if the Kang Dynasty ended time, Doomsday might end reality itself. The story of Avengers Doomsday doesn't explode with armies in the sky, it awakens. It begins with a sound. A low hum resonating through Battleworld, deep, ancient, almost like the universe breathing again after centuries of silence. Doom stands at the heart of his citadel, surrounded by runes glowing in fractal patterns. He believes it's the Chrono engine stabilizing. But Reed Richards knows better. He's seen this pulse before, in fragments of lost universes recorded in cosmic radiation. It's not stabilization, it's awakening. Because what Doom rebuilt wasn't just a world, it was a prison. A cage around something that was never supposed to be contained. The Beyonder. Now let's unpack this slowly, because this is where the theory goes from epic to metaphysical. Remember how Kang built the TVA to keep timelines from branching? According to Perez Insider draft notes, the TVA's real secret wasn't just time management, it was containment. Deep beneath the TVA's structure, in the sector Loki never reached, was a rift, a tear in existence sealed by raw energy. Kang called it the Source. The Source wasn't time energy or quantum realm residue. It was conscious energy, self-aware, adaptive, and infinite. Kang discovered that when universes die, their consciousness doesn't vanish. It condenses. Over eons, that condensed sentience becomes an entity, a being of thought that predates gods and outlives time. He called it the Beyonder. Kang feared it because it represented what he could never master, creation without control. He built the TVA atop it, using the Chrono engine as a lid. So when Doom reforged that engine to stabilize Battleworld, he didn't just power his empire, he reawakened the very mind Kang had buried. That's the hum we hear, the first heartbeat of the Beyonder. It starts subtly, the sky flickering, the ground humming, whispers echoing across worlds. Doom believes it's interference, a minor anomaly, but the Resistance, led by Reed Richards, recognizes it immediately. Reed explains to the Avengers, every universe Kang destroyed, every consciousness that faded, it's all still here, it's waking up. This revelation changes everything, because suddenly, the war isn't just about freedom versus control. It's about survival versus transcendence. If the Beyonder awakens fully, it will unmake Battleworld, not out of malice, but because existence itself can't sustain that much awareness. It's like an ocean remembering its water, while still trapped in a cup. The Resistance realizes they need to stop Doom, not because he's evil, but because his perfection is preventing the multiverse from being reborn. But Doom, blinded by his own certainty, interprets the Beyonder's awakening as validation. To him, the whispers are voices of worship, the universe acknowledging his mastery. And this is where his humanity starts to fracture. He begins to see visions, reflections of himself in the energy streams, infinite Doom speaking in unison. One praises him, another warns him, a third mocks him. They're not hallucinations. They're echoes from universes that never were, possibilities trying to realign. Each version of Doom represents a different path he could have taken. The scientist, the sorcerer, the savior, the tyrant. The multiverse is showing him who he might still be, but Doom rejects them. I am not possibility, I am purpose. That's the tragedy of Victor Von Doom, his belief that destiny and divinity are the same thing. Meanwhile, the Avengers rally under Reed. They've begun to remember themselves. Strange reconnects with the Darkhold's fragments and discovers that magic reacts violently to Battleworld's stability. Magic thrives on chaos, on uncertainty, and in Doom's world, it's suffocating. He tells the team, this place looks alive, but it's dying, like a song stuck on a single note. So they form a plan. They can't destroy Doom's citadel outright, it's anchored to the chrono engine. But they can disrupt its synchronization long enough to free the Beyonder's consciousness. Their hope is simple but dangerous. If they can let the Beyonder awaken fully, it might restore the natural chaos of the multiverse. It might restart creation. Of course, Doom sees this as treason. He unleashes his enforcers, beings he forged from fragments of lost heroes. Imagine Iron Man's armor merged with Ultron's sentience, Captain Marvel's energy fused with a Celestial's core, Spider-Man variants twisted into a hive mind. These aren't soldiers. They're ideals corrupted. The battles across Battleworld are more symbolic than physical. Each fight mirrors the philosophical war at the story's core. Sam Wilson's Captain America leads the ground resistance, preaching hope, rebellion, and imperfection. Against him stands Doom's Sentinel army, marching in flawless synchronization. Every punch, every explosion, every shield deflection becomes a metaphor. Individuality versus unity. Chaos versus order. Doctor Strange and Wong infiltrate the Citadel's lower levels where time flows backward. They fight through loops of their own memories, forced to relive failures until they learn to forgive themselves. Only then do the doors open, a literal manifestation of redemption through acceptance. And then there's Loki. His arc in this section is arguably the most emotionally devastating. Because throughout Doomsday, Loki walks a razor's edge between ally and betrayer. He sees in Doom what he once saw in himself, the desperate need to matter. But when the Beyonder's whispers reach him, they speak differently. They call him the lie that became truth. That line gives me chills every time I think about it, because it reframes Loki's entire journey from trickster god to redeemer. The Beyonder recognizes in him the one quality Doom lacks, the ability to change. Loki becomes the hinge point of the story. He's torn between Doom's promise of a throne and Reed's plea for freedom. When he finally chooses, it's not out of loyalty or heroism, it's out of empathy. He tells Doom, you think you can perfect the world by removing pain, but what if pain is the proof that we exist? And for the first time, Doom hesitates. Because deep down, he knows Loki's right. Every great act of creation, from invention to love, began with imperfection. But Doom can't let go. He believes that if he surrenders control now, everything he's built will vanish. So he does what Doom always does when faced with doubt. He doubles down. He binds the chrono engine directly to his essence, merging mind, body, and machine. His armor reshapes into something divine, part metal, part cosmic light. His voice echoes in every atom of Battleworld, and the Beyonder awakens. The sky tears open. The hum becomes a chorus of infinite voices, speaking not in words, but in understanding. Every being feels their memories, their potential, their purpose, all at once. It's overwhelming. A flood of existence crashing into consciousness. Some collapse, others ascend. And in the center stands Doom, screaming into eternity, behold your God. But instead of worship, the universe responds with reflection. The Beyonder manifests not as a single form, but as billions of eyes across the sky, each showing Doom his failures, his regrets, his lost humanity. It asks him one question: why do you fear what you cannot own? This moment, this exchange, is where Doomsday transcends being a mere superhero story. It becomes an existential reckoning. Doom looks into the void and sees himself not as a ruler, not as a god, but as a child building castles in sand. Every conquest, every triumph, every empire, erased by a single tie. And yet, He refuses surrender. "If I fall," he declares, "then let me fall as the last man who dared to stand against infinity." That line alone, that poetic defiance, is pure doom. Reed Richards steps forward, scarred and exhausted. He tells Doom, "You were never meant to fight the universe. You were meant to understand it." Then he does something unthinkable. He offers Doom his hand, not in battle, but in reconciliation. Reed's philosophy throughout Doomsday is that progress comes not from control, but collaboration. The universe isn't asking for a ruler, he says. It's asking for a partner. For a moment, Doom considers it. You can almost feel the silence stretching, the weight of eternity hanging in the air. And then the Beyonder speaks again. But this time, it speaks through Doom. Its energy flows into him, its voice merging with his own. The entity doesn't want to destroy him, it wants to merge. To experience creation through the only being arrogant enough to shape it. This is the ultimate test. Doom can either let go and evolve or hold on and perish. He chooses the latter. He absorbs the Beyonder's essence into himself, becoming the living embodiment of existence's contradiction, control, and chaos fused. The fusion is cataclysmic. Reality bends inward. Battleworld begins collapsing into a singularity. The Avengers, realizing what's happening, scramble to evacuate survivors through Reed's dimensional gateway, a machine built from remnants of Kang's quantum tech. Loki, standing beside Strange, whispers, "He didn't win. He just refused to lose." And that's when the final confrontation begins. Doom, now glowing with cosmic energy, stands at the center of the imploding world. Every atom bends around him. He is God, but a god in agony. The Beyonder's voice echoes through him, saying, "You wanted perfection. Here it is." And Doom screams as light bursts from his armor, consuming the sky. The explosion isn't destruction, it's transformation. The energy spreads outward, dissolving the boundaries of worlds. Universes collide and merge, not in chaos, but in harmony. The heroes are swept away, scattered into the reborn cosmos. When the light fades, only two figures remain, Reed Richards and Loki, standing in the ashes of Doom's citadel. Reed looks at the horizon, where fragments of new universes begin to coalesce. He says quietly, he did it. He remade everything, but not the way he wanted. Because in trying to perfect existence, Doom accidentally reseeded it. The multiverse is alive again, infinite, free, and chaotic. Loki smiles faintly. Perhaps that's the only kind of perfection that ever mattered. And then, from the shadows, a single metallic hand emerges from the dust, Doom's gauntlet, cracked but still pulsing with light. A whisper escapes it. "This is not the end." Cut to black. Now let's pause here, because what I just described, the fusion of Doom and the Beyonder, the rebirth of the multiverse, the philosophical duel between control and chaos, isn't just the climax of Doomsday. It's the culmination of everything Marvel's multiverse saga has been building toward since Loki season 1. Think about it. Loki introduced the illusion of order, the TVA, as the cage. Quantumania showed the cost of control. Kang's empire collapsing under its own perfectionism. The Kang Dynasty explored the destruction of time. Doomsday closes the loop by exploring the destruction and rebirth of meaning. That's a level of thematic continuity that rivals the Infinity Saga, but on a metaphysical scale. And yet, according to the leaks, there's still one more chapter. Because Doomsday doesn't end with restoration. It ends with a question, whispered by Loki as the stars reform. If gods can die, who writes their stories? That question, according to the theory, sets up the final installment of Avengers Eternity War. In the next and final part of this deep dive, we'll explore how the reborn multiverse, seeded by Doom's failure, leads to the rise of a new cosmic order, one where the line between creator and creation dissolves entirely. Because if the Kang Dynasty destroyed time and Doomsday rebuilt reality, then Eternity War will answer the only question left. What happens when the universe itself becomes self-aware? When the light fades after Doom's cataclysm, the silence that follows is unlike anything the MCU has ever shown. It's not the calm after destruction, it's the hush of creation catching its first breath. Fragments of universes swirl in cosmic stasis like embers floating through an infinite void. It's the birth of something entirely new. I picture the camera panning across shattered constellations and broken galaxies, all slowly stitching themselves back together. And in that light, we realize Avengers Doomsday isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of a consciousness. This is where my theory dives deep. Because according to Alex Perez's insiders, the final pages of the Doomsday script set up a concept so profound that it might redefine how the MCU tells stories forever. See, Doom's fusion with the Beyonder didn't just remake reality. It uploaded his consciousness, his will, into the fabric of the multiverse itself. Meaning Doom didn't die. He became the code that the new universes run on. Let that sink in. The same man who spent his life trying to control reality now is reality. Every timeline that reforms, every star that reignites, carries his influence like a ghost in the system. But here's where it gets wild. He's not alone. Because when the multiverse reboots, every consciousness touched by the Beyonder's wave leaves an imprint. Loki, Reed, Strange, even the TVA. They all become part of the multiverse's new nervous system. Imagine a cosmos not governed by gods, but by memories. Now, as we drift through this new existence, we find Loki awakening first. He's lying in a realm of pure white, neither alive nor dead. The runes on his arm glow faintly, a sign that he still carries a fragment of the Beyonder's awareness. He looks around and sees reflections of himself, not variants, but moments. Every lie he ever told, every betrayal, every act of redemption playing out like echoes. A voice calls to him, the same voice that once whispered from the void, the lie that became truth. And Loki realizes this isn't an afterlife, it's the root of existence. This is the eternity nexus. Now let me explain this part carefully, because this is where Marvel's storytelling philosophy hits its ultimate loop. The eternity nexus is where all timelines converge, not in conflict, but in harmony. It's the beating heart of the multiverse, and sitting at its center is the Beyonder, or rather what remains of it. But it's changed. No longer an all-knowing entity. It speaks in fragmented thought, unsure of its own identity. Are we Victor? Are we everyone? Loki approaches cautiously, realizing that Doom's consciousness has fused so completely that there's no distinction between God and creation anymore. Doom is the multiverse, and the multiverse is starting to remember that it used to be free. It's tragic and poetic all at once, because this new cosmos, vibrant, boundless, and infinite, still bears Doom's fingerprints. Stars rise and fall in perfect rhythm. Evolution unfolds with mathematical precision. It's flawless, but there's no chaos, no unpredictability, no life. Reed Richards, somewhere in another newly formed universe, senses it too. He's alive, building again, but haunted by a persistent hum, the sound of the universe repeating itself. He gathers the survivors of Battleworld, Strange, Captain Marvel, Wanda, Peter Parker, and a handful of others, and explains what he's found. It's like every possibility is looping, as if the universe is stuck remembering the same dream. And this is where Eternity War begins to take shape, because the heroes realize they didn't defeat Doom. They became part of him. Their every action, every thought, feeds the cosmic order he left behind. The multiverse isn't reborn, it's rebooted. A simulation of infinity running on Doom's perfection. So Reed does what Reed always does. He looks for a way to break the system. He creates something called the Paradox Key, a theoretical device designed to introduce an anomaly that even a perfect universe can't account for. A paradox so profound it forces reality to rewrite itself again. And he knows exactly who can wield it. Loki. Because Loki is the anomaly incarnate. The trickster, the shapeshifter, the lie that rewrote truth. If anyone can outwit a god made of order, it's him. Meanwhile, Doom, or what remains of him, begins to sense their defiance. His presence manifests through the stars, forming colossal holograms of his face that ripple across galaxies. His voice is omnipresent, echoing in the minds of every being. He whispers, "I gave you peace, and you crave chaos. So be it. Let us finish this dance one last time." And in those words, the multiverse trembles. Reality starts to collapse in on itself again, only this time, it's conscious. Whole universes move like chess pieces, shifting in patterns, trying to anticipate the Paradox Key. It's Doom's mind playing defense on a cosmic scale. But Reed's plan isn't just science, it's emotion. He tells Loki, you can't outthink him, you have to feel him. Which brings Loki to the film's most powerful moment, his descent into the core of the nexus, where Doom's true essence resides. It's not a battle, it's a conversation between gods. Loki faces Doom's fragmented consciousness, an ocean of light shaped like his armor, suspended in infinity. Loki asks him, "Why did you make it perfect?" Doom replies, "Because perfection cannot die." Loki smiles sadly. "Then you've never lived." And with that, he activates the Paradox Key, not by destroying, but by choosing imperfection. He offers Doom forgiveness. He tells him, even gods deserve to fail. The paradox triggers instantly, because forgiveness is the one equation perfection can't solve. It implies vulnerability, uncertainty, and choice. The multiverse starts fracturing, but not in chaos this time. It begins to dream. Every universe starts rewriting itself, creating new timelines, new possibilities. The rigid symmetry dissolves into organic beauty. We see glimpses of worlds reborn, mutants walking openly among humans, the Fantastic Four standing on the Baxter Building rooftop, a young Spider-Man swinging through a city that looks just a bit brighter. The MCU is reborn, not rebooted but reawakened. And in the center of it all, Doom watches the chaos unfold. For the first time, he doesn't fight it. He kneels, touches the swirling energy, and whispers, "So this is freedom." Then he vanishes, not erased, but integrated, becoming a silent observer of the multiverse's new age. As the scene fades, Loki stands alone in the Eternity Nexus, surrounded by shimmering strands of infinite timelines. He looks into the camera, directly at us, and says, "The story never ends. It just changes who's telling it." And that's where Avengers Doomsday closes. No explosions, no victory speech. Just quiet transcendence, a finale that suggests the MCU has become self-aware, that every story we've ever watched was the universe learning to tell its own tale. Now, when I step back and really think about it, this direction from Marvel isn't just bold, it's poetic. It takes everything we've been watching for over a decade and flips it on its head. Thanos wanted balance, Kang wanted order, Doom wanted perfection, and in the end, what saves everything is imperfection. It's a metaphor for storytelling itself, for art, for humanity. Because if every story ended perfectly, we'd stop telling them. Marvel, through Doomsday and the upcoming Eternity War, is essentially turning its own mythology into a commentary on creation, on how stories evolve beyond their creators, how ideas outlive the hands that made them. And I think that's genius. Let's also talk about what this setup means for the future. Because this isn't just a reset, it's a redefinition. With the multiverse reborn, Marvel can now reintroduce anyone in any form. Wolverine from a different reality, a new Iron Man, a variant T'Challa, Miles Morales stepping into the main timeline, all justified by this new creation event. But more importantly, it allows the MCU to explore the humanity behind its myths again. Because after gods and conquerors, after time and destiny, what's left to explore? Choice, regret, love. And who better to guide that exploration than the characters who've already transcended their archetypes? Loki, Strange, Wanda, and yes, even Doom himself. There's also a subtle implication hidden in Perez's leaks. That Doom's consciousness, now woven into the new multiverse, may reappear as the voice of eternity itself, meaning he'll never truly be gone. His essence becomes the quiet narrator of the universe, a haunting presence that ensures no perfection lasts forever. And I find that both beautiful and terrifying. Because it means the MCU has entered its mythic phase, where stories aren't just sequels, but reincarnations. You can imagine the next phase opening with a voiceover, low, resonant, familiar, saying, "Once I sought to rule creation, now I am its witness." That's not the voice of a villain. That's the voice of evolution. And that's how Avengers Doomsday transforms Dr. Doom from a tyrant into a cosmic philosopher, a being who becomes the question rather than the answer. In storytelling terms, it's the only way to top Thanos. Now, as the screen fades to black and the Marvel logo reappears in shimmering white, one final scene rolls. It's Reed Richards standing in a new lab, watching stars form through a telescope. A knock echoes behind him. He turns, and standing in the doorway is a figure in white armor. Sleek, unfamiliar, but radiating power. Reed asks, "You found your way back?" The figure replies, "Not back, forward." And as the mask retracts, we see a young Victor Von Doom, not the tyrant, not the god, but the man he used to be, reborn. That's the MCU's greatest trick yet. The loop is complete, because even after everything, the war, the collapse, the rebirth, the universe still gives its villains a chance to start over. And that's what keeps this saga alive. So when people ask me, "Liam, do you think Marvel's lost its magic?" I tell them no. I think Marvel's remembering what magic really is. Not power, not perfection, but the endless possibility of stories. The MCU isn't ending, it's evolving. And Avengers Doomsday might just be the proof that even gods can grow. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for diving deep with me through this wild, mind-bending, heart-crushing exploration of what could be the boldest Marvel story ever told. I've broken down these details in such a way that they'll leave you shocked, and I meant it. Because whether the Kang Dynasty had happened or Doomsday takes its place, this theory reminds us that every story has a shadow version, a what-if running parallel, just waiting to wake up. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want me to explore the full Eternity War theory, the next chapter in Marvel's rumored cosmic trilogy, then make sure you like this video, share it with your fellow MCU obsessives, and subscribe to MovieCast. Your support keeps these deep dives coming. And if you really want to help me keep this channel thriving, consider dropping a super thanks of $20. It directly fuels our research, editing, and storytelling. Until next time, I'm Liam Harrison, and remember, in every universe, in every timeline, the story never ends. It only finds a new way to begin.